4:30 p.m. So what is Mud 7? We'll go into session. We have Brad, Marta, Emily, and Paul here. So I think we got a quorum. So let's go ahead and get started. So according to our new agenda, let's go ahead and stand and we'll do the invocation and then the pledge. And we actually have both flags here. So Heavenly Father, we thank you that we live in a country where we can freely participate as citizens into the role of our government and our services. We ask your guidance and blessing upon us tonight as we consider the business before us. Let all that we do bring honor and glory to your name. We pray these things in Christ's name. Amen. Okay. We do the pledge. We pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The Texas flag. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God,
and indivisible.
Sure, for us non-Texans, natives, after a couple months, we'll have this down.
I want to make sure I understand that the invocation is open to any religion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll be happy to rotate.
No,
If
I
you
don't,
guys would like to.
I don't want to do that. I just want to make sure that if someone should want to do that, that we.
Yeah.
Yeah, the way, I shot my memo, but I thought the way that we had addressed it back when it first came out was it was at the discretion of the president, and the president would conduct the invocation or not. And so if the president wanted to have it from someone other than the president, then we would have something like that to make sure that it's a fair and impartial.
Okay. So right now, we're just at where Brad would lead the deal. That's fine.
Yeah. Hey. Okay. Do we have any comments from the public today? Looks like our attendance is, everybody's home trying to stay cool or recover from the storm. Okay. Any requests for adjustments?
Nothing this month.
Okay. Good. So we'll go on to the consent agenda. Okay. It's in the package. I think we were all here last month. Any comments on that? Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor of approving the consent agenda? Say aye.
Aye.
Okay. So moving on to item 10. So as Jack mentioned last month, he had a prior commitment, was not able to join us tonight, but we have an agenda item to consider filling the open vacancy with Jack Munich. So Brian, do I hand this over to you now?
Yeah, so what we can do, we can't accept his qualification statement, bonds, oath of office, those items until he's here and present, which y'all can, since we have an action item on here. We didn't take any action last month to memorialize that y'all wanted to seat Jack as the new director, but you can do that here, and then we'll carry this item forward next month as well to be able to actually seat him on board.
Okay. So we need a nomination so we have a nomination or a motion to seat Jack as a board for Mud 7.
I motion that we seat Jack.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I second that we seat Jack Munich for board director position that's vacant.
Okay. Any discussion? We all had an opportunity to meet Jack last month. He shared a little bit about his background, his interest.
I'm going to abstain because I don't know any more about Jack than I did last month.
Okay.
So I'll sit back.
Can we take a vote?
Do we address that? What do you want to know? What do you want to know?
I don't even, I mean, what,
Oh, you didn't
what
get a
did he
chance to meet him?
introduce himself in?
Yes.
And he said he liked water.
Well, he actually was,
Huh?
he was actually very,
You don't
Active
need to
in the
explain. You just
election.
go ahead and vote. I'll
Yeah.
learn to know him.
okay.
Thank you.
So let's call for a vote. All in favor of seeing Jack to fill our open position as the Director of Med 7? Say aye.
I
Aye.
want to
Okay.
abstain.
Stay.
Abstain.
Brian, then you will carry over what needs to be carried over.
Yep, we have reached out to them. We provided them the background, documentation, policy manual, most recent audit and offering document, that stuff we provided to all the new
Yeah.
directors that were elected. So he's got all that. Trying to them, then, that's his personal information to complete his documents to be seated. So we have all that next month.
So one request I have is, could we send him links to the training material from both the River Authority and the Woodlands Water Agency? So he's got that. He can begin to look at that. Okay. Thank you. Chris, monthly report.
Yes, sir. So our report begins on page 18 in your packet. High-level summary, nothing out of the ordinary. Water's trending as it was last year, feed production and treatment themselves. No violations. You will notice on page 22, and it carries through the projects, the financials are not available this month as well. Last month, we did provide the April financials, but we do not provide May. This month, we are hoping to provide May and June, but as you can see, we do not have those. So the new accounting software, the new ERP system, still has some glitches and bugs in the reporting software. So at this point, we can put stuff in and we can get checks out, but we cannot get the proper reports just yet. So that's what's on page 22. Also carries through the projects on the next few pages. So when you look at the invoice today, keep in mind those are as of April 30th. There are a number of projects on that list that's going to be closed once we get the updated financials and returning to you, so you can see what the budget versus contract versus bill amounts for. Nothing else really going on in the report unless you have questions, but I just want to let you know during the hurricane, we had power outages at 56 of our 57 locations in the Woodlands. The only one that stayed online was Water Plant 5, which is by St. Luke's Hospital. But besides that, we had very minor damage. One canopy that kind of folded up and blew away pretty much. And then a panel that blew out, small panel, $10,000 worth, but no service interruptions, no major damage. So, but I'd be glad to take any questions if you have them.
Any questions for Chris?
I had just a general question. In the infrastructure maintenance, going through all those items, last time I noticed it's back again about aeration basins 1 and 2 at the treatment plant. So I understand they're out of business but in the far right-hand column, it says to be demolished, awaiting wastewater master plan. So, I mean, that appears to be somewhat delayed. So, I mean, do we just continue to do without or not repair, or how would we go about repairing them and not wait till we wait another year to find out whether we're going to do anything?
So those two are beyond repair at this point in time. So if the outcome of the feasibility study that I'm sure you'll talk about later in the trustees meeting, if the outcome of that report is to repair in place, then we're going to demolish and rebuild these aeration basins. If the path forward is to do one of the other 3 options that are there, they're still going to be demolished. But to go in there and do any type of repairs, it would not be worth the money, because there's a common wall that both the aeration basins share, and that is what is structurally loose between.
So they're like typical old aeration basin, concrete and steel, and the walls are deteriorated or.
Yeah, and they've already got supports on them, so we've already done all the patchwork. We've injected into the cracks, the Sikaflex in there to seal them up and coated them and everything else, so.
Okay, well, just anything, I guess, that we have awaiting wastewater master plan need to be looked at as we go along,
Right.
so that we don't let them sit another year.
And so anything that's out of service and gonna be out of service for a while. We're still putting this on the list. So that way you'll know stuff that's out of service for a day, a week, a month, a year, whatever it may be.
But these have been in service since 2012? Yeah, okay. So it's not if it was an urgent need, it would have been dealt with between now and 2012.
Correct.
So it's 12 years.
Correct.
Okay.
They have been designed. It took about 3 years for them to be designed. And then once they were designed, they were put on the shelf. So.
Thank you.
I've got a couple other project related questions. On the bottom of 24, the owner advisory for new treatment plant. So that's the one that we're going to adjust or reallocate for the study.
Right. As approved by the trustees last week.
Okay. So that'll be updated on here to show that it's being reallocated to that activity?
Correct.
Okay.
This report's for June, that occurred in July, so we try to, it's a ping pong game, you know.
But what was talked about, the trustees, was getting a new company to do that, right? So have we already let a PO or purchase order to this OA services?
Correct, we have for Corello Engineers. We're not gonna go back and do Freeze and Nichols, who's done the last 2.5 years or so. Corello has also expressed they're not interested in the design of wastewater plant one.
So Corello is who's this current contract is with?
Yes, sir.
So we're not actually going out and finding somebody new to do our study. We're using somebody that we already had retained to do the owner assistance role. Okay. Okay, because I had the impression that we were going to seek out an independent,
New RFQ, get new people in.
but we're not doing that.
We're gonna adjust this. This was an RFQ that went out earlier this year. From that, we got 3 vendors to come in, 3 consultants to come in, selected them as the highest one, and brought them forward and adjusted their scope.
Okay. Thanks for clarification on that. Bottom page 26. So this is the condition-based assessment. Is this still shows 0 spend? Is that because of the counting system or because we actually haven't started this?
Accounting system.
Okay.
So we did start it about 2 or 3 months ago. I don't know if it showed on here.
Yeah, that's why.
Yeah, I'll get that note updated. Helping out, but we started about 2 months ago. We've already done some preliminary above ground testing on some of the AC line we pulled out of the ground. Did that last Wednesday and Thursday. We have a meeting this Thursday to talk about the non-destructive testing, and I think it's about 30 sites they want to do.
Could you bring an update next month besides just this line item?
Definitely can.
For as much work as went into talking about whether we needed this and then deciding to do it, it'd be nice to have some regular updates on it so we can track what's going on. Anybody else have any questions? Thanks for that update. I think that takes us over to the budget item.
Yes, sir. So this is the same budget that was presented in May. If anybody would like a copy of it, I do have a copy I could pass around.
Yeah, can you do that? I mean, we've asked before that if we're going to vote on anything, I'd like to see a paper copy of it.
But nothing has changed from the May presentation. The budgets that you're going to see stay the same. I do have one copy of the presentation. I think I'd like to skim through that to see it as well. Information was updated to the Google Drive. And I just brought copies in case you know. Water rate is a drop of 2%. Wastewater rate is proposed to stay the same. And then the GRP fee, which you did not vote on, but that has been approved to be a 7% reduction.
Yeah, I want to share this or have any interest in it. So do we have a motion to adopt the budget as presented by Chris? and recommended.
So this will be to authorize the trustee.
Trustee.
Yeah.
So I guess the motion is to authorize the director's trustee to approve. Okay.
And this budget is just for regular expenditures that we regularly incur.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, this was presented 2 months ago. And there's a documentation that describes it. They mentioned it last month. There was no questions on it. And so now that we're ready to direct our trustee, and then the next month, the trustees will actually vote to approve it.
The only question I have is why, if we're going to have to spend money, why do we not take this savings and put it into like a trust account for future expenditures rather than drop the rates?
So one thing I can answer, just from my perspective, it's really the ball in your court. This is the wholesale rate. What y'all do on the retail side is entirely up to y'all. So our rate to use dropping 2%, in theory, y'all could decide to keep your rate the same, I would imagine. Then some of those funds you could retain.
We can build a road.
Is that done as a separate MUD or all the MUDs have to agree to?
Each of the mines have, so there's a wholesale rate on River Authority, and they're only supposed to charge a rate that's necessary to meet their budgeted expenses. So they're not gonna inflate the rate to set aside additional unless we have a higher R&R account or some other purpose that those funds will be needed for.
Okay.
But what Chris is referring to is the retail rate that Eric and prior to Eric just did. So it's really hard to have be uniform or pretty much uniform among the MUDs is adopted by each of the MUDs. So technically, does it have to be the same among all the MUDs? Try to speak uniformly across all the MUDs. So somebody doesn't have a water bill or retail bill that's one amount on one side of the street and on the other side of the street have a different one. We work very hard to try to have them.
Okay, thank you for answering that.
So
I
this next answer is we only maintain a minimum reserve for operating expenses. Okay, so we do not build up a reserve for capital expenses or major expenses. Okay, those are typically funded via bonds, which are the opposite of building a reserve. You take a bond and then you pay it back over time. Eric, would you?
Are you referring to SDRA or the MUD
the MUD.
or both?
The water, the muds.
The MUDs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're really handcuffed by legislation that doesn't allow you to really reserve much at this point. So I believe you're developed.
Yeah, we're developed. Yeah.
So you cannot increase your revenue over last year by 3.5%.
So this is a discussion we'll have a lot more
Yeah,
next month when we have the BUD budget. So next month will be your calculate recommendation and the BUD budget that will show what your projected reserves are in your operating account. So, we'll look and see how much are we expecting to generate from your anticipated tax rate. And, we'll see. I think it's too early to say if there's going to be a recommendation to retain a portion of that drop in the wholesale rate in the retail rate, not necessarily reduce it the same amount to try to build up reserves. I think it's too early to say if that's going to be a recommendation.
Okay.
I think what Eric said about the 3.5% a year, that's important. Since it's dropping 2, we can go up to 3.5 max without a vote.
So that's two different revenue levers. I think about it as revenue levers. So you've got a rate revenue lever, what people pay for water and sewer. You have tax revenue lever. So what's limited to 30% is your tax revenue lever, not your rate.
Rates.
Because we're limited on your tax rate revenue lever, there may be some reason to consider, again, too early to say, you haven't looked at the budgets for the MUDs, to maybe retain a portion of the reduction in the wholesale rate as the retail rate to be able to scroll away the reserve at the budget all the limitations of your tax.
Thank you.
We'll get in, like you said, we'll get into a lot more detail next month. You'll have the reports kind of in front of you, and we'll talk through.
Okay. Can I entertain a motion to direct the trustee to approve the requested budget by the River Authority?
I make a motion to approve the budget as printed.
I have a second.
Second.
Right ahead.
Any additional discussion? Okay, shall we vote? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. That takes us through item 12. So you want to cover page 40 for us?
Pass it up.
Yeah, no update from that.
Oh, okay. That takes us to Brian. Anything from the attorney's report?
Nothing on the attorney's report. I will note that, basically with Eric, we are in additional session discussion until next month.
So that was item 17. So we mark that as deferred.
And 17 is deferred.
Eric, you want to take us through the GM report?
Sure. We just wanted to talk a little bit about how we kind of worked through the storm and a couple other items. We had several employees here Monday morning. We lost power by 10 or so. And once that occurred, it was pretty difficult to really maneuver and do anything on communication. So folks headed back out to their places, their homes most likely. From there, we were all able to keep operations flowing. We were receiving customer calls through our remote system. We were able to do work orders to adjust or to go out and address the issues that residents were facing. Most of the calls were related to tree falling down on a house, breaking a water line inside. They need their water turned off type of thing, or a tree falling and pulling up their personal line, and they needed the water turned off, those types of things. So we were able to get through it pretty well. There was some misinformation out there that we were hearing rumors of, that people were talking about there was a boil water notice. There never was. Myself and John were working on and sent out a public notification Wednesday morning through our email system, as well as through several of all of our social media outlets. By the end of the day, they had hit, I think, all those. So just to educate people that water's still safe to drink, and it was uninterrupted. Other than those that had breaks at their house. But so we were able to manage through it pretty well and stay operational even despite the situation. I think the Woodlands, we got power early Wednesday morning, and we're back up and running full steam, mostly. And then we just had, I think, our final employee that didn't have power got it last night at their home. So as it affects our community, also affects our friends and family as well, that we all deal with, as you all know. So we got through it pretty well.
I think you guys did a great job. I think communities. No.
Didn't feel any pain.
Yeah. Esther did an amazing job out in the field. We assisted where we were in communication during the storm, and worked as a team to make sure that the customers didn't see an issue.
Can you comment on, I know we'll see it next month, but what the rates were through the treatment plants? Do we hit anything high?
Nothing even close. It's more of a windy event than a rainy event. They were slightly elevated, but no violations that I'm aware of.
I think the rain gauges around the area ranged from about 4 to 8 inches, depending on where you were. I got 8 where I'm at, and that's kind of on the northwest side of the Woodlands up there, and other parts of the Woodlands got 4 or less. So just kind of depended on where you were at that moment, mostly.
So treatment plants didn't exceed any of their 2-hour limits.
Not anybody told me. That I looked at, I did not see.
Who powers the surface water plant? What,
Entergy.
it's all Entergy as well as here, up there too, all the way up there.
Woodlands has about 85% of our power comes from Entergy.
Right.
The rest of it is.
They may be getting better. They've had some failures in the past. And I guess sometimes that's a result of being a monopoly. We don't get to choose our electric company here.
Plant 1 has Entergy and CenterPoint. So the plant itself is on Entergy, but the admin and the maintenance is on CenterPoint. So this morning about 10 o'clock, generators for CenterPoint finally went off and got power back at those buildings.
Wow.
So you have redundancy at all the plants?
Well, we have backup generators. In this case, it's just because where the line in the sand is between the 2 providers, they won't let us connect the 2 together. We'd like to, but they won't.
Stay off the grid.
Real quick, as we just mentioned, we are going to be talking about budget and tax next month, so we'll have more on that next month. I did want to announce that Mike Mooney is retiring, and this will be his last round of meetings this month, and he's going to be retiring as of August 1. So we're looking for a replacement as we speak, and it's going to be big shoes to fill for sure. Mike's helped me quite a bit as I've transitioned into this role over the last 1.5 years. So it's going to be a big additional learning curve for us to get the new individual up. But
Has it just been 20?
20 years.
It's just been only 20.
Feels like a long time.
Right? It is 20 year a couple weeks ago.
Good for you. Thanks so much, Mike.
Congratulations. Yeah.
Last thing I had was to have John talk a little bit about communications.
Good afternoon.
No.
We want to get the supplemental. I just want to touch on a couple things within that. Oh, need one?
I think she,
I don't think
no, it was on the counter.
Packet. I'm sorry. Did not pick it up. Thank you.
I'll keep it brief tonight. Eric spoke to Hurricane Communications. Our quarterly reports, we saw those, so those could get mailed out to all customers, and then we send that out via all of our other outlets as well, and then that lives online throughout the year. We want to make sure folks are seeing those. And I did put a little research in there that I think underscores how important it is for folks to hear about their water quality reports and just hear from us in general. It correlates directly with trust. So the more folks hear from us in general, the more they trust the water they're drinking. And then that table on the right there, those are results from the last 2 community surveys. So you can do a little math there and see how we stack up against the national averages, and we come in close to 10 points higher as far as how confident people are in their tap water here in the Woodlands. That's good. All right, page 2 there at the bottom. Didn't see this. Check it out. We had a piece in the Woodlands Community Magazine.
So excuse me,
Oh, yeah.
there's a difference. The national is 85% consider the quality of their tap water excellent or good. And in the Woodlands, it's only 53%.
But we count 53 and 41. 3.2 and 41.1.
Oh, you count those
So
together.
90.5 compared to 86. And then, okay, so going back to Community Magazine, again, if you didn't see it, check that out. So that comes to your house every 2 months now. It's how they send it out. It's a township publication. But that goes to all homes and apartments in the Woodlands. We had one in our infrastructure renewal That's also online at the township website too, if you're looking for that. And then, really nothing significant on our work with Hallway Communications Consultants. We're still working through, the same pieces we were working through last month, e-messages, website design, advisory group and so forth. Obviously, some things have evolved over the last month or so, with some various projects, so we don't want to rush things and develop the sensitive, so continue to work through that.
How do you think these rumors start that we have to boil water? Have we ever
I'm sorry.
traced down?
They have to boil water.
Yes. How do those, are they social media? Are they just
So
community?
Someone just posted on Nextdoor usually.
That's all you gotta
Everybody
do.
runs with it.
Well, and you might, because
Or you hear on the radio that they say, oh, somebody in Montgomery County or Harris County is boiling water. And then
Well,
you find out it's a little teeny tiny mud that's, has 50 people,
the
but
Chronicle, had that
Yeah.
one district and 3 private entities that had to boil water. So, I mean, it's in Montgomery County and everybody gets their water from, pipes. So that means we need to boil ours too, and that's how they start. I don't think,
I think that's exactly right. My wife last night actually saw something about the boil water in the system. She's like, "You don't have to boil our water."
I know they were
She
saying
questions
that.
that, it's easy to get misinformation out there.
Yeah, I just wish. we
I mean,
could
if you'd
get
gone
the
online and looked at the Chronicle or the
Mm,
Courier, there was an article that said parts of Harris County, Montgomery County required to boil water.
Right.
And then if you read it, it's
point out the 3, the actual
Yeah.
ones that, and the subdivision name and all that. But
Yeah.
like I
That's
said,
why we wanted to jump all over that, get notice out, any way we possibly could get ahead of that.
I wanted them to publish who ran those plants, but that,
I looked.
he decided not to put that in
I
there.
looked it up. I tried to look.
Yeah, I'll help you later.
The article you mentioned, I did see that. I was curious, are you, just from a marketing standpoint, are you prepping people for a big number? Because I know that we haven't decided what our spend is gonna be, but it's in there, like how be waiting.
We are steering clear of any kind of numbers at this point.
It's in the article.
What's
It was in the article, so I didn't know if you were prepping people
Oh,
for that.
well, so that number was what we were moving forward with, that 590. But since that went out, things have changed. And so now, this point, and please jump in, I don't think we want to.
Yeah, the article was
numbers.
written months ago, but
Yeah.
it's still a factual number based on the project plan, whether or not parts of it get built or how it gets built and what gets built. Ultimately, something has to be done on aging infrastructure, regardless of what the number is. So the point being was, the only number we have today is what's the published project plan number. So you have to start prepping people at least for, the worst case, hopefully. But recognizing that the actual plan of what might go forward has not been decided yet, for sure.
Yeah, I think we want, exactly. I think right now we just really want to lay the groundwork for very significant renewal that needs to happen. Getting folks to understand that we have these water treatment plants and we have big pipes in the ground and how that system works, which we should get a little more understanding of infrastructure in general, that it's aging. And really that's where we want to be right now. And those numbers will continue over time and get those numbers out when it's appropriate. But that was the project plan number at the time. Because this was submitted 2 months ago.
Have we done, or can we do, the social media and email about the wipes? I think they can wreak havoc to a pump station. When it's like, I don't know what to say, putting something you shouldn't down the garbage disposal, but it's a big problem. I think, I don't know if y'all have any issues with it. But I think it's, we don't need to put in there that the House of Representatives passed a bill that probably make everybody do it. Anyway, but I think we could, it'd be helpful to put that out to all our customers and for
Are you
us,
talking about the flushable ones
the flushable ones that
that say they're flushable,
they
but
do
they're
not
not?
flush.
They're not.
They don't, they may at some point.
It's gonna have a label on the bottle, all the containers, not.
I know it's just a bad issue because
It is bad.
people think it's that way and a lot of people use them. And I guess if you left them alone long enough, they decompose. But not before they hit that pump station and all the filters that have to
Yeah,
go
they
through.
destroy equipment.
So I think it'd be good if you do that.
Absolutely. So we message on that probably about 4 times a year through the Woodland.
Yeah,
Valley
I've
Report.
seen them before.
And then that will go to social media channels. We actually, I had my intern, that was just, finished up a couple weeks ago, develop an infographic on wipes and noting the legislation on
Yeah.
that too. So I think you made a neat infographic, but we continue to push that message, absolutely.
I think it's hard when they see that flushable wipes on all the packaging and then you're telling
It's
them
kind of
no.
a tricky term, actually. You can flush them.
It is fluffy.
They're just gonna mess up at the end.
Yeah.
You know, I
They're
watched.
small enough to go.
Netflix had the sewage treatment plant for New York City. They have a film on it. And that's the first thing they show you is all the flushables they have to take out before it goes further into the plant. It's gross. Huh? Yeah, they have the water treatment plant for New York City. It's pretty phenomenal.
We do one stuff, we have one called Fear the Fatberg with, hogs, fats, oil, and grease, and all that down and slowly. Matters.
That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you, man.
Okay. Thank you. Item 16 is the trustees report. I was out last week. Emily filled in for me. So Emily, you want to cover that? And
Thank
Eric,
you.
feel free to add anything you want to add also.
Sure. So we all can read. I'm not going to revisit all of the words, but I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the highlights. Some items that I feel for us to know about is the trustees went ahead and authorized the SGRA to proceed with the additional feasibility study of wastewater WRF1 and including MBR technology. So 4 different items: MBR technology on new land with a 50-year service life, conventional technology on new land with a 50-year service life, repair in place based on conventional treatment with a 50-year service life, and repair in place based on conventional treatment with a 50-year service life. So this analysis is going to be done with a decision criteria matrix. So when the time comes to actually make the vote, we don't want to all be wondering what we're voting on or, do we consider this, that, and the other. So by November 1st, a decision matrix of what are all of these things that are important to everybody? Where are you on all these different things? So when we get to that point, we'll see which is the most important for the whole group. So when the vote happens, everyone knows what's going on, so we can move this forward with whatever 1, 2, 3, or 4 that is mentioned. So right after that, so the 500,000 that was mentioned earlier, that Brad mentioned, 550, there's a budget, it was kind of swung from SGRA over to this particular project to look at the 4 items and have this company come in and do the Corello engineers do the 4 focuses and give a detailed look at all of those. But November 1st, the criteria will come to us so we can start having some overview of what's coming, but we're not going to get ongoing updates as this goes along. This is going to be a presentation once everything's complete.
When do they anticipate that?
8 months.
8 months?
Yeah, at the max. So, and then up to a year to vote for a final conclusion on that.
So, similar to phase 1, is there any trustee or director engagement as a stakeholder group or as an input group? Are they just basically taking what they've got and direction from the River Authority and working for 8 months and then coming back to us?
It's an unbiased independent review that they're doing of the data we have from the first area, first event, but there's no stakeholder group. The involvement would be with Eric.
So when they put together their decision criteria matrix, how are they going to weight that?
So at this point, what we're going to do is we're going to give a Corella, we're going to give some basically prelim thoughts and ideas, suggestions, and we're going to turn that over to the trustees, who's going to make the final decision criteria matrix from what I understand.
Yeah, my understanding is once we get that from STRA, I'll take a look at it and then talk it over with the trustees to see, what it's going to look like is, for instance.
I mean, there was a similar one in the initial study
Okay.
that had, smell or odor reduction.
What's important to
It'll
us,
be the
cost.
same thing, just not a stakeholder group, it'll go to the trustees who will check the boxes on what's to be used.
And the weightings on them.
So will we have any discussion from our end on that? So everybody has an input and then take the board of trustees for each of us up to the table.
Right. So
As
I
a
imagine it'd
representation.
be, I think y'all said a 5-6 month process where once we give it to the trustees, I would imagine they would lead it through the muds, then y'all would take it back to the trustees at the end of the day, which
That's
are.
what I would expect. Yeah, it needs to go through the months.
And so all of this was discussed and, after all of this was discussed, Trustee Maggart, it didn't say necessarily on the agenda that he was presenting, but there was some data that was presented that showed the plant is doing a very good job. The operators are doing a great job. Everything's looking wonderful. And to that end is, do we need to do anything? Well, this is a great operator. These are great operators. They're doing a great job at the plant. Doesn't necessarily mean it's the plant, because plants age, but the operators are doing a great job keeping everything in line. So with that data, it could be given to the people who are doing the summaries, just to kind of give them that data. There was a discussion around having Woodlands Water fund through the muds. Kent wanted everybody to discuss it. Is this something that we want to have an additional person look at it unbiased and then have that compared to the SGRA portion for the last of the 4 items, which is excuse me, I want to say it right.
Repair and place.
Repair and place the conventional treatment with the 50-year service life. So that particular one.
Ken's proposal was only a 25-year service life.
Well, it's
And what I've
25
asked,
repair and then 25 because you have the
No.
operation and service afterwards.
No,
what I've asked for of SDRA is that line item, the 4th option, do exactly what what you and others are asking for, which is repair in place for 25 years. But in
Okay.
order to have apples to apples, you need to add on another 25 years after that. So you'll see what half of it looks like and see what would need to be done to get all 4 to apples. So I think it's very important that everybody sees that if you go down a certain route, you need to see the big picture on what it's going to look like after you get to that 25-year mark. But you'll see it. It'll be part of that. So it'll be split. The first part will be that 25-year look, repair and place.
the challenge may be if you do the 25 years and then you do a rebuild at the 25-year point, then you've added another 50 years to life. So you'll be comparing a 75 to a 50.
I just said 25 plus 25.
But what if,
Keeping
at
it
that
replaced.
25 point, if you rebuild,
That would be another option.
you'll
You're gonna have to do something after that 25.
after 25 years, you're not likely to just extend for another 25. You're likely to extend for another 50
So I wouldn't think you'd be wanting to do that now.
because you're not required to, because a significant part of the assets still have 20 to 25 years of remaining life in them. based upon your technical assessment,
So my what?
technical assessment.
Fine.
Yeah, I mean, look at the 60-page document that was generated. Well, the one that,
Okay.
yeah, okay.
I didn't put it together.
But the one that we're using, when our reference document, if you go through and look at a number of the facilities from a concrete and steel standpoint have 20 to 25 years of useful life left in them. Right?
There are some assets that do have, which have plenty.
Okay.
I'm just clarifying what was reported.
Okay. So I guess the item for us is, would we like to review the data that I assume, well, one question is, you looked at the data Ken presented, it came from you, I assume?
Came from me.
So can you share that with us next month?
Oh, certainly. I sent it to Shelley and Eric, y'all.
But all it was is the effluent history.
Yeah.
So BOD, TSS, ammonia, all the parameters that they're required to clean the water to before it can go out to the stream.
Right.
That's all that he presented, which SDRA provided him.
So, I mean, I guess the question is,
You're mandated to do that. You don't have a choice until the plant can't do it anymore.
right. I guess the question for MUD 7 is, do we want to review that data and consider Ken's request that we consider funding an independent analysis, as opposed to just depending upon the activity that's being funded or being directed through the River Authority?
So his request was basically an unbiased review of the last portion and then have it be another option alongside what SGRA is doing. And he's leaving that to everybody to discuss.
So I guess my request for this group is, do we want to add that for an agenda topic for next month? And are we interested in seeing the data?
I wouldn't mind seeing the data, but it would seem that that data would be a part of Corolla's looking at. I mean, they're pretty good at that. And all we will see is 30 years of history of the ammonia and the OD.
Yeah, there's no magic to the data because.
I mean, the data is there, but I don't know what MUD 7 could do. I know I'm useless in that regard. We have statisticians and people that can look at data and decide what the norms are and things. I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing it if it's available, certainly, but for me to see the BOD or the oxygen demand BOD 5 for the last 20 years.
5 years.
5 years. I mean, I don't know what I would gain from that.
Yeah,
I think the main thing is that we've been able to do most of this without any violations, or at least a minimum number.
Yeah, the plan's not, the request to look at the options is not based off of violations in the permit. It's based off condition and the condition looking forward. So
Right.
we don't have a concern operationally at this point.
My main concern is that 8 months from now, when we finish studying this again, have we not had any violations? And then when we finally get started doing something, have we done it soon enough to prevent any violations? But yeah, I'd like to see the data.
we can send that out very easily.
What it came down to with trustee meeting, it seemed like was, a few of the directors just had a real skepticism of the consultant that was going to be engaged to do this work.
What?
So.
Yes.
Well, I don't think
Maybe not necessarily.
I don't think it was unique to them.
Not about that group, but I think Kent referred to, some instance back in the past when he was previously a MUD director, that something that the River Authority had been involved with, and that causing him to have skepticism about what was produced by River Authority, and it sounded like he wanted a separate consultant to basically do that work, but under the direction of Woodlands Water. That was how it seemed.
I mean, I guess the other part that Ken presented was not only the performance data, but the price data that showed a very rapid increase in the price for the replacement over a fairly short time period. And he was concerned about what does that reflect in our confidence of the work that's being done.
Well, and so part of what was discussed is if there are concerns, does it make sense to peel off one particular option and have it go on a parallel path early, or wait until the report from this consultant comes back, see if it already, recommends option 4 or some other option, and then if folks feel like there needs to be an additional outside party to validate that, consider it at the time that you receive that report. So that was, I think, Emily, part of the discussion as well. I don't think there was any landing point. It was asked to be put on next month's agenda to consider.
Yeah, it'll be on next month's trustee meeting agenda.
Has Kent picked a firm yet that
Yes.
had mentioned one that he'd like to see?
No.
I think it would, little discussion was if it had to be a separate RFQ put together and.
Right, we'd have to do it,
separate-
You'd have to find funding.
have to do it the way we always do, selecting an engineering firm.
But the key difference would be, they'd be accountable to the Water Authority and under Eric's direction rather than under River Authorities. Yeah.
How much we gonna pay for that mud 7?
Is
1/10.
1/10 of it.
1/10 of the cost to do the study.
I mean, I don't know there was a number thrown out. I don't think it was real, but we'd have to figure out
Can be at
what we
least
can get it done for.
what we
If
paid.
could even do it. Yeah. Basically hiring a fourth party to look over the shoulder of the third study on this.
I wouldn't say not look over the shoulder. I mean, I would say do independent.
To do another study of what's already being restudied.
That's
That's
different than looking over the shoulder. Working independently is different than working in conjunction, looking over somebody's shoulder. You're not providing guidance, direction, or correction. You're looking for an independent voice. I mean, it's no different than you go to a doctor and doctor says, hey, we think you need to have a surgery. And you say, well, before you start cutting, let me go talk to another doctor, which is right?
Yeah, and I think that's part of the timing thing that was discussed. Does it make sense to do it early, parallel path, or wait till you get into the second opinion to validate? So that's part of what needs to be
I
discussed.
believe Kent, was suggesting, have them give their objective opinions and we get to hear from both sides. And if there's debate that needs to happen, then let them do that debate in front of us and we can kind of.
How do the other ones feel about it?
Well, and then
Nobody's discussed it yet.
right. This was
This is just.
for the first time. It was at the trustee meeting last week.
Because
So-
this says he just wants to evaluate the 25-year
Right.
extend.
Right. That's what I
And the
mentioned.
fourth one is saying replace it in place based on a conventional treatment with a 50-year service life. So is this
So this was the apples for apples that went into the vote for SJRA.
so is this actually a fifth option? No,
It's
it's part of the four options.
so the key thing is, do we, it sounds like there's enough discussion that we ought to just add this to our agenda for next month. We will have
trustees will have probably already voted on it if they do vote.
and we can review what they've done and still look at the data. Okay. Because we're not in a position to do anything as a MUD today, right?
It's on-
Not on our agenda. Okay. So it's, I think breaking this out as a separate item next month to to bring the data and then get us a more detailed summary of what
How much it's
happens
gonna
at the
cost.
trustee meeting.
So before we spend 200 potential more million, let's just, if it's an extra, Kent threw out $50,000, if
Yeah,
it's
it's
an
gonna-
extra little bit of money for us to 1/10 it, just for making sure we're doing the right thing.
Yeah, I think
And
it's,
if they say, you know what, that repair and place idea is just hogwash, is a goodbye, like that's a bad idea, then, it'll be very clear for us and we can just put it to bed.
well, it will be 100 at least because we've just paid that,
Yeah, I think that,
150.
Ken needs to come up with a number and share that with everybody.
Well, I don't think he's
No.
qualified to come up with a number.
Whoever's the person.
Yeah.
So do they still work off the same base data though? I mean, if everybody works off the same base data that was created 5 years ago or 3 years ago, does that really change your results?
Certainly. I mean, you have all the times you have people that look at the same data and come to different conclusions. Right?
Yeah, to say, I mean, you could hire someone if you did to do their own condition analysis. That's going to be a heavy number, probably not 50.
Yeah, I don't think Ken's talking about that.
I understand. I'm just
Yeah.
He's
expressing
addressing my
how you can do
concern.
it. I think in this case, what was my understanding is that we would utilize as much data as we already have to have this fourth party look at it.
Different perspectives. I mean,
Yes,
engineering,
but if your
not data.
data is not,
But the data.
has changed, because that was created how many years ago?
All that data is 5 years that was submitted. And he submitted 5 years worth of data.
Oh, yeah, performance data, but the assessment data is not 5 years old.
Yeah, no, the data you're talking about will get you, there's no value in that. It just shows you that you've met permit for the last 5 years.
Well, it shows that there's no trends.
There's not, yeah. The data that I think we're talking about that the consultant would use would be the condition-based assessment or the condition
Equipment.
assessment of the equipment, because they're gonna have to come to, a final analysis of a recommendation
Correct.
based on the scope that we give them.
Mhm.
So,
One of the little minor studies we did too is about if you get 25 years out of it and then you decide that we're going to have to rebuild it anyway, the inflation and the cost that the ratepayers are going to see 25 years from now. Because I talked to somebody, I mean, it wasn't many years ago, I guess, but we used to estimate $2 a gallon to build a wastewater treatment facility.
yeah, in my career.
And now it's what? I forget.
30.
30?
Yeah, but
$2 to 30 in about 20 years. So, I mean, that was something we showed. One of the studies that delayed it a little longer was to find out what would it cost if we went on and did it that way. Friesen Nichols showed what that number is. Ain't gonna be our fault. We'll
Well, I
be
mean,
gone.
the fact
We'll be
that-
gone.
The fact that it costs more to do it in the future doesn't mean that it's still not the right thing to do. And if you do any kind of
Well, I
economic,
mean, as long as it's not me that's trying to put that number out there while we limp along for 25 years and then boom, you have the same issue of prove that it's wrong, prove that we got to do it, and then we're going to have a rate increase that will be ginormous because it's not the same. It's not the same, Brad. It's not the same. Concrete's getting harder to find, steel's getting harder to make.
if you do any kind of net present value
They
analysis,
did. And
Okay.
it said that we ought to do it.
well, that's because they thought it would cost 33 million to
That's why
maintain
you
it.
need another engineer to tell you that it's not true.
Anything else you want to cover from the trustee meeting?
Everything else has been covered here today.
Okay,
Thank
great.
you.
Thank you again for attending and standing in for me. 17, we're skipping, deferring. Okay. So I think 19. So the only item I've heard so far is the historical data that Ken's shared with trustees and a detailed summary of what happens at the trustee meeting.
Well, we don't need an agenda item to share the data. We'll just send it to you. That's easy.
Well, I want to make sure we have time to talk about it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Review and discuss.
Yeah, okay.
Then we'll have the draft budgets and tax rate recommendations.
Anything else that we want to add for next month?
That will be on here.
Jack, you'll carry those items over. Okay. Any other items?
No.
Okay, it's 5:30. We'll adjourn. Thanks so much for coming.